Welcome to SV Up, Silicon Valley Unplugged. I'm your host, John Huang, the producer at Sparknify. I want to thank you all for being here for this live studio conversation about the future of education and college admission, and what it means to grow up in a world rapidly transformed by AI. Let's be clear, this isn't some far-off science fiction. We're only talking about the next 5 to 10 years. And that's the window when most of our children will be graduating from college. And in that same window, we'll likely see AI systems become smarter, more capable, and more efficient than our children. Not just in academic, but in just about every skills they'll acquire. So the big question is this: if our children are entering a world where machines may outthink them, how should you, as parents, position them for success? And how must higher education reinvent itself to stay relevant, accessible, and meaningful? And even earlier, how should we rethink our K-12 system and what lifelong skills will actually matter in a world shaped by AI? We're joined tonight by experts who are at the center of this transformation, from those who've shaped college admissions at the highest level to the esteemed civic leader working directly with the students and families. Together, they'll help us explore how the very definition of an outstanding student is being redefined. We got two incredible guests to sort this out. Council member Greer Stone is both a passionate public school teacher and a compassionate civic leader with firsthand experience in the classroom and at City Hall. He brings a rare and essential perspective on how educational policy translates into real impact. He understands where the system supports students and where it falls short, and has consistently worked to bridge those gaps. Please join me in welcoming Council Member Greer Stone.
Thanks, John.
All right, awesome. Next, we have Michael Treviño. He has served at the highest levels of higher education, overseeing admissions for the entire UC system. His experience has given him a comprehensive understanding of what colleges look for, how decisions are made, and the structural challenges students face in the admissions process. We're honored to have him here with us tonight. Please welcome Michael Treviño. So to start, can each one of you share with us your personal journey to have arrived at this point where you can guide all parents about where to go and where it means in the AI era? Maybe we start with you, Mr. Treviño.
Great. Well, thank you, John and Greer. Great to be with you. I had no idea growing up that I would be doing what I've been doing, and I think it kind of has shaped a lot of the things in terms of my values, my upbringing. I'm a first-generation college person. I had 11 aunts and uncles on my mom's side, 8 aunts and uncles on my dad's side. Out of all of those aunts and uncles and all of their children, I was the first to go to college. And and my path was not direct. When I went to high school, I was not tracked for college. My parents didn't know what it took to go to college. They expected that high school would prepare me and direct me, and it didn't happen. I didn't know about E through G. I didn't know about the SAT. So when I graduated from high school, my parents asked me, we're hearing about people going to college, where are you going? And so I went to my local community college. I grew up in Gilroy, went to Gavilan College. I had been working full time my last 2 years of high school. I was working at J.C. Penney's. And my goal when I went to Gavilan College was to get a better job than the one that I had. And they had a program in engineering technology where I could get my Associate of Science degree and I could get a better job. So I did that while I was working at J.C. Penney's. And I graduated and I went to go work. I worked for IBM in South San Jose. So that was my journey. I worked in tech, left with some engineers to another tech company in Silicon Valley. And I had a glass ceiling in my job, And I spent a summer working for it was a Cal in the Capital summer internship working in Sacramento with the California Rural Legal Assistance. And that summer there were attorneys working on education legislation and the way that we track, or I should say we don't track, migrant farm worker children. And that summer I thought, wow, maybe I'm not going to go back to Silicon Valley. Maybe I want to go to law school and do the kind of things that these folks are doing. So that led me to go to law school. I worked for a couple of big firms, decided to do a joint degree in higher ed, and worked for the Attorney General in the Education Division, and then I got on the higher ed track, you know, and it was just I did a Harvard Administrative Fellows program, worked at Harvard, worked at Boston University, and then came back to California, and then I was Assistant Dean of the School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley, and then Dean of Admissions at UC Hastings, UC College of Law in San Francisco, and then I was Director of Admissions for the UC system, and then ended my UC career as Assistant Dean of Student Affairs out at UCSF. So I've had a really long career that I never imagined.
That's amazing life story. Starting as an immigrant family and work at J.C. Penney, but ended up at the highest gating for our students to go into higher ed. That's pretty
crazy.
And then in the middle, you got a JD too. So, wow, that's amazing. And so, what about Councilman? You have two jobs that are most stressful yet most satisfying. So, can you share us with your journey to arrive here so you can guide our parents about what to do in the future?
Well, I wish you would have had me go first so I didn't have to follow Michael's very impressive career. But, well, yeah, I grew up in Silicon Valley. I grew up here in Palo Alto, and I attended schools in Palo Alto from kindergarten all the way from graduating Pali. And both my parents were public servants. My mom still is an elementary school teacher in Palo Alto, and my dad was in law enforcement for his entire career. So I always knew that public service was something that I wanted to do. I didn't quite know what that was going to be, but I knew I wanted to do public service, and so I went to UC Irvine, and actually first I was studying psychology, because at that time everyone who didn't know what they were going to do was trying to get a degree in psychology, and shortly found out that I loved political science. It was when Obama was running in 2008, and I got wrapped up in the campaign, and I found so much hope and optimism in that message. But while following the campaign, I kind of realized I don't know anything about the government, how any of this works, and so I started taking political science classes. That led to me taking law classes, and when I got out of college, I realized I wanted to go to law school. And so went to law school, became an attorney for a few years, and I guess this is where our career path is a bit similar.
Absolutely.
You know, I got into that work, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being able to help people, but kind of quickly realized that you're always in the worst time in people's lives, and they're always kind of hoping that you're going to be able to bring some sort of kind of conclusion to their pain. And even if you win the case, you know, it's not quite that resolution that they were hoping for. And you know, since my mom was in education and my wife is a teacher as well, I knew that was a path that always spoke to me. And so like Michael, I went back to school, but I went to get my teaching credential, and I've been teaching ever since. I've taught in the Palo Alto schools. Now I'm teaching at Carmont High School up in Belmont. They ran for the Palo Alto City Council back in 2020. Was successful. I've been serving on the council since then. Last year, I served as Palo Alto's mayor, and so yeah, being able to kind of wear those two hats, and in particular, in my teaching position, I teach AP government. So being able to teach government and to be in it is really thrilling. And so yeah, so I enjoy both, and it's nice to be able to bring my passions and energy and experience to try to benefit people of Palo Alto and my students as well.
That's amazing too. Wow, two incredible people here, and this is a very important issue. And I'm very glad that we have a K-12, higher ed, government side, and actual in practice too. So this is going to be a very nice panel. I want to mention last week, OpenAI Sam Altman basically said the kids going to college today, when they come out in 4 years, the things that they are being trained and being taught are not going to be, there's no job for those. There's 90% of them going to be gone. So I know, Mr. Treviño, we had a private conversation earlier, and you mentioned that you actually saw this trend coming. You saw the data. Can you tell us how we're going to reform the school, and what can the system change itself to make it possible to work?
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, John. This is really, it's a bigger issue that in many respects sort of precipitates AI. We started seeing this stuff in the labor market. We've seen it over time, really. It's going back to the 1980s, and then and certainly with the recession in 2008, there was a reset, and employers were demanding graduates that be more ready for work. You started to see that after the recession of 2008. AI has added fuel from another direction to this challenge, and it's led to this sort of disconnect that I think not enough families are aware of how much really the labor market has changed. And it's not just on higher ed, it's actually on us as parents, on students, in terms of what we need to do. In the old job market, the career process ended basically with getting your kids to college. You get your kid to college, and employers would hire them when they graduated, and they would train them. That has changed. Employers do not want to hire people that they have to train. And that's been a reset. Now, what happens is with AI, not only do you have that emphasis there, but you also have, with AI, the ability to do jobs that humans used to do without having to hire humans. So a lot of the lower and even middle skill kind of functions can be done with AI. So it's huge. It has changed. Our graduates today are facing the worst job market in decades. And one of the primary reasons is they don't come ready to work. Students today need to come to college knowing what they want to do. The worst thing you can do is send your kids to college and expect that they'll just figure it out when they get there, because the data is very, very clear. I've looked at the latest Department of Labor data, and what we're finding is over the last 5 years, most of our college graduates are underemployed. They are doing jobs that only require a high school diploma. But what we also see in the data, and this doesn't matter what kind of a higher educational institution you go to. It used to be in the old labor market that there were big advantages if you got your kid to a more selective college. Because the more selective colleges, the mindset were more selective, these were smarter kids, and they're going to be easier for the employer to train. That used to be the reward system. And I think a major problem is we have a lot of families and students, probably most families and students, that think that is still the labor market. And that is no longer true. The data shows it is no longer true. It is so 2015. It is no longer true. What students need to do now is you have to know what you want to do before you go to college. So that way you come with a plan. You come with a plan. And the data shows that. The data shows a huge difference between those who come with a plan and those who don't. And by coming to a plan, I mean not only, you need to know what career you want and why you want to do it. So that way you come to college and you're not only taking the right major, you're doing internships, you're doing externships, you're doing extracurriculars, your electives are strategic. Every year you have work product and things that show that you have skills that are deliverables that an employer can use. Those kids are not underemployed. The data is super clear. They are not underemployed. Those who are not in that camp are underemployed. Even the data shows the students that are at the most selective universities, a third of them are underemployed, doing jobs that only a high school diploma takes. And you see kids that went to a significantly less selective college but knew what they wanted to do, they come to work ready to work. And the outcomes are completely different. So it has to start early. And it has to start with parents understanding that this getting to college is going to be the way to economic security. That's not it. It's getting to college with a plan. Going to college and knowing why you were there and having a plan that's more than just taking classes in your major.
Thank you. That's a very important message, and I wish that can get out to the parents because that really determines success for our future generation. Thank you, Mr. Treviño. But that leads to our councilman because he's basically saying the students need to know what they should be doing. And that seems like, I remember when I was a senior, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to get to college, and that was my job as a senior coming out of high school. So what kind of structural changes is necessary? And is there anything the government must do to facilitate that?
Education is tends to be one of the industries that is, especially at the K through 12 level tends to be pretty slow in adapting to the times. And actually, we've just gone through one of our most transformative moments with the pandemic. I mean, now things are happening in classrooms that never happened before, but because of distance learning, we had to adapt, and when kids came back, we kind of kept a lot of that. So we've shown in the last few years that we are capable of making these changes. A lot of it is going to come down to policy. The state of California needs to also understand the importance of training students at an earlier age and having a greater focus on real world skills and kind of workforce training and an expectation to try to kind of figure out what careers a student wants going into college. So there's a lot of standards that the state requires of K through 12 that can definitely be modified to have a greater focus on that. And then within the schools themselves, I think we need to reinvest in college and career centers. Michael and I were talking about this before. They still exist, and Palo, Carlmont, they all have college and career centers. I'm not aware of my students really utilizing those very well. And when I talk to them, and I teach very, very intelligent seniors at a top performing school, AP, they're all college bound. But when I talk to them about the careers they want, it's still kind of those more traditional careers that we think about here in Silicon Valley. Our engineers, they want to work at Meta and Google and Apple. They want to become doctors and lawyers, and they're not quite yet in understanding, I think, this seismic shift that we're in, and getting that data to them. I mean, I was really fascinated listening to Michael just then. I mean, they're smart kids. They understand data, and I think we just need to get that out in front of them and get that out to the parents. And these are things that we can definitely achieve.
So, Michael, earlier you were talking about this job market change and how that impact the school. But and so, what can the school do? We're still talking about 4-year degree in engineering, on programming, or mechanical engineering, and all that can probably big part of that can be done by AI in 4 years. So, what are you proposing? Because Sam Altman is saying that the entire system needs to scratch and then start over. They're proposing something completely different: a certificate program, micro degrees, These are all radical ideas. And what do you see, and what's adaptable in this case?
Yeah, great question. It's a combination of things. The data's really great. There's some fabulous data out there. You can see in actual data what kinds of skill sets that the labor market is rewarding, an increase in salary and increasing in jobs. And no surprise, more than just coincidence, a lot of the things that are being rewarded in the marketplace are the kind of skill sets that AI can't do. AI can't do project management. It can't do leadership. It can't collaborate in the same way working with other people. It can't, there's a whole sets of skill sets that AI can't do. And so what people need to do to prepare for this future, it's a combination of things. It's a combination of knowledge of different kinds of industries, but also know how to use AI with those things that AI can't do. Those are going to be the people that are going to be most valuable. Now, what this leads, though, of course, is these tremendous, some would say, efficiencies. Because now when you have, for example, an engineer who knows how to use AI tools and knows how to do all these things that AI can't do, that engineer with AI bots can do the work of multiple engineers. Okay, so there are huge efficiencies, cost savings, profitability that can be made by those folks. But what we're also talking about is the need for fewer engineers. You need the engineer that knows how to use these tools, and then you don't need as many engineers. Okay, but it's going to be really critical for students to understand what those other skill sets are, and you're not going to get them in a college classroom. You're not going to get them at college alone. Colleges they got a different purpose. They're not a place to go for careers. When you're talking about research universities, they're doing research, they're teaching subjects. They're not set up to be career counselors, you know. So it's on us. This is not higher ed's fault or problem or mission. It's not what they're designed for. You're not going to turn a Nobel Prize winning physicist into a career counselor. That would be silly. It's ludicrous. It's on us as individuals to understand the world of work, and you can find all this information. Actually, a lot of the things that I found right before I came on here, a lot of the things that I've read, I plug it in AI and it comes up in an AI search. A lot of the stuff that I've read. So smart kids can find the things that I'm talking about, you know, and find the data that I'm talking about in terms of what they need to do, in terms of skill sets and knowledge. But it has to start early. You have to treat high school not the way you did even just a few years ago. You can't just focus on the subjects alone. You need to use high school to explore careers, to learn about what are your aptitudes, what are your interests, where do you find joy, what do you love to do, why do you love to do it, what are your values. You need to do that during high school. Where do you find joy? What do you love to do? Why do you love it? What are your aptitudes? What are your interests? There is fantastic tool sets that I use with the students that I work with to identify their aptitudes and interests and skill sets. And it's very revealing and confirming at the same time. And students go, wow, I hadn't thought about these careers. This actually would be fun. And then we talk about, okay, here's the pathway. Here are the kinds of courses that you need, but here's the other kinds of experiences that you need along the way to build that experience so you can come ready to work. The other things that you need to learn, you need to look at sort of where the jobs are going too, and you can also pull this stuff up. AI can help you find it. We're seeing this big push, and the market is rewarding the jobs that can't be done by AI. For example, in skills trades. Oh my God, if you're an electrician, the salaries are really great. The job security is incredible. Your job can't be outsourced. There's a huge shortage, the demand. You go through all these things. They're highly skilled. It's applied math and science, you know. But there are a lot of things where we can see there is growth and there's demand. Health sciences, all the different, like physical therapists. There is a demand for doctors. We probably could have a greater need for doctors if we were to fix our healthcare system and actually hire more doctors, you know, because we need them. The population's aging. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do. But I think it starts with parents and students understanding that everything has changed. It is not about which college you go to. It's not about, you know, just getting your kid to college and then everything's going to open. Even the most selective colleges, the data shows, a third of those kids are underemployed. The difference, though, is if they knew what they wanted to do before they went to college, they did more than just take the courses. They had internships, they had externships. An internship, actually, 2 internships while you're in college is actually like measurable difference in job and career placement and salary. And often your first salary and your first job has an impact on what happens after. If you're underemployed for your first job, the data shows that 5 years later, you're more likely to be underemployed. If you're not underemployed for your first job, 5 years later, you're less likely to be underemployed. So all of these things, you start in high school. You start early on exploring careers and what you're interested in. And I tell parents that I do sessions with, you know, especially for the pandemic kids, they missed out on a lot of opportunities. A lot of them were in middle school. You know, you missed out on a lot of things. It's been a slow return to a lot of the extracurriculars. I encourage gap years. I encourage taking some time. There isn't anything magical. Now, if you know by the data that just going to college and graduating isn't going to get you the golden ticket to the job, okay, that's what the data shows. Let's take this time between after high school and explore the world of work. Explore different kinds of things so you can learn what you want to do and why you want to do it, and then you come to college with a plan.
I agree with everything that Michael just said, so I won't repeat it. One thing I look towards for job security, because AI is changing everything so quickly, and we know it is just going to accelerate. And what jobs might be available in 5 years, we don't know if they're going to be available in 10 or 15. I think one of the best places to be looking at right now are union jobs. I think labor unions are going to play a massive role over the next couple of decades, for sure, ensuring that those jobs don't disappear. And so jobs within the trades, education, public safety, etc. You're not going to be, even if the technology comes around to be able to, let's say, replace teachers. The California Teachers Association will ensure that that does not happen as the largest labor union within the state of California, and having a lot of political pull with legislatures and lawmakers who are the ones who are going to have to approve making those changes from people to technology. And so I'm always concerned about private industry because you don't have that level of protection. So agreed with the soft skills really going to be key, but also finding where am I going to find some job security throughout my career.
And I would second, that's a great point, what Greer just made right now. I was at the Harvard Club of San Francisco. I'm a member of that, and there was a wonderful conversation I was part of just last night. And part of this conversation was about the future of AI and the regulatory market. There's a lot of different views on the future of AI and the regulatory market. From the EU, UK, the EU is more concerned about how this affects people, and you see on the other end, like Singapore and others, it's just kind of free, whatever you want to do, and you know, but somewhere in there, and how we do this regulatory matters, and actually, like to Greer's point, unions have been in a disfavor. It's been in a downward spiral. I think it's probably since about 1980 or so. And it would be very important that come back. Because this is a period of time when people are going to need good paying jobs. And over the last several decades, there's been this anti-union through legislation, through red state governors, right to work laws that are really destroying unions, and this is going to be having an even bigger impact with AI. It's going to be critical for our country to especially reduce the inequality, because AI is making just tremendous wealth. Meanwhile, about 40% of the country can't afford a $400 unexpected expense, right? We're the richest nation in the world, more wealth than anywhere else, but it's concentrated. And so while we have AI, in the period of all of this disruption that's going on, the key, it's going to be really key that our government fix this and restore the power of unions, restore the power of regulatory on AI, so that way we have still jobs that people can pay the rent and live on throughout, beyond even just the skilled trades, manufacturing jobs. You're seeing this throughout the nation, even charter schools that don't have unions, and what that impact is on education. Big. The regulatory world is going to be very important for the future of all of us.
I agree, and I wish Congress and Sacramento were faster in responding to this, but that's also always been one of the great flaws of government, is how slow it is to be able to respond to these changes. And we've seen that throughout history when we have had these big shifts in technology that really kind of change the way in which we live and work. So I'm hopeful. I know there's a lot of discussion, but I have less hope at the federal level right now than I may have ever had.
We held a film festival back in May, and there was a panel discussion with a representative from the labor union that represent the film industry. And if you remember, about a year ago, there was a huge strike lasting about six months, and the film industry pretty much stopped producing films because AI-generated videos are one of the fastest growing industry. And they're very concerned. One company can pretty much take out the entire city, literally, in industry. And at the end, they compromised, and it was just at least to hold off, to buy time, and hopefully either at the federal level or some other states that they can have some sort of regulations on what exactly can this replace.
It's going to have to be federal, because state can't control. The AI is just too big for any one state. You have too many other states. The oligarchs will go to the state that doesn't have the regulation, and that'll just defeat it. You really are going to need the federal government.
And this could actually be even higher, because they will go to another country to do this, and
Sure.
then we have another problem from there. So it is a very large question. But I remember you mentioned earlier, the successful person, for example, an engineer, there's going to be very few engineers left. The ones that are able to use AI the best are the ones that will be most successful in the work they do, because they're so efficient. So the question comes down to this. I remember 20 years or so, or maybe 30 years ago, my dad was thinking, well, you don't want to use computer too much because you will lose your basic training skills. Stop using computer, get back to your core learning skill. If you look now, if we had started that computer usage earlier in the stage of your life, then you will be able to get into this entire revolution a little faster. So the same question now for a lot of parents out there is, when should a kid start using AI? And if many of you have seen that MIT data, and it shows that if you start using AI, you stop acquiring new skills. And not only that, you start to lose the skills that you had before. So the question to Councilman is this: when should we allow our kids to start using AI? And I heard this year a lot of essays turned into college applications are written beautifully. It's so beautiful that everyone's impressed. But of course, they're all done by ChatGPT now. So when should we start this AI, and when do we allow them to start using that tool?
Well, like everything else, it needs to be structured. And so I do think having, I mean, of course, not starting too young on AI or on cell phones is critical, but having time for younger students, maybe I don't know the exact level, and I'd love to be able to kind of see the data to have a better understanding of that. But I do think it's appropriate to start teaching students at a younger age uh, what is an appropriate use of AI? How can you use it to supplement your learning, to supplement your work? So I think we can't completely, you know, try to escape it, um, but also recognize that there is a right time to do it. And I know a study recently just came out about a connection between cell phone use and mental health between the ages of 18 and 22, and showing the earlier young people are using cell phones, the worse their mental health is uh, at, at a later stage of adolescence. And so all of this, I think, is very tied together. And so kind of culturally as a society, we need to be able to find the appropriate safeguards to make sure that young people are understanding how to use this technology appropriately and proficiently, because that's the future. I mean, it's the present and the future, whether we like it or not, but while also recognizing that there are serious mental health consequences associated with these. And as you said, we're seeing a real regression when it comes to actual intelligence and problem solving when it comes to AI. But while even I'm seeing these studies and recognizing it, I'll still quickly pull up ChatGPT and help me with this issue. And so I think we're all going to be guilty of that. But I agree with kind of what Michael had been saying earlier. I mean, at the end of the day, the data is going to speak for itself, and we're fortunate to be living here in the Bay Area where we believe in data, we make informed decisions based off of that. We just need more of that up front. And I think I'm someone who tries to familiarize myself with as much of this as I can, but I've been learning so much from the data that Michael's been sharing, so it's not out there enough. And we're still so much in its infancy, which is both exciting and terrifying, that there's a lot more to be learned, and so, but also I think far more consequences too that we can't ideate at the moment.
So my kids already graduate. One of them graduated from college already, and the other one is not in high school. But are there any policies right now as far as AI usage? Are the teachers putting guards on that? How do they turn in their homework? Are they turning prompts? Because I heard they're using ChatGPT to generate prompts now too. So it's kind of what are being done, and also even civic for government. I heard some cities they don't allow, and then some allow, and then they lay off half of the staff. What is happening right now?
Yeah, well, school districts are trying to respond. So for example, our school district uh, kind of revisited our academic integrity policy. We have a district-wide policy, and this year they added the use of artificial intelligence into that language, and encouraged all of us, and that was part of a lot of the trainings we had going into the school year. Make sure that your syllabuses are updated to show artificial intelligence, where it can be used and where it cannot be used, and the consequences of violating the academic integrity policy. So they're responding to that, but still, right, it is very difficult to be able to determine when it's being used appropriately or inappropriately, and to be able to catch a student when they're turning in an assignment that's written by ChatGPT or any other AI software. And kind of what we were talking about a bit earlier, there are times where you can make it very clear. I've seen a student's writing in class. I know kind of their range with that, and then I'll give them an assignment where they get to go home and write sometimes a pretty complicated essay and come back with a polished, PhD level paper overnight, and you're kind of scratching your head going, I don't know how you came up with this. And so, but then that's the difficult conversation to have, to say, you're not capable of this work. As a teacher, I want to believe in them. And it's really hard to be able to prove that, because also the AI software out there that's supposed to tell you if it's AI generated, not very effective. So we're finding some workarounds. So if, for example, what I'm requiring students to do, if it's a take-home assignment, they have to write it on a Google Doc, and they have to share the the history of the document history. So on there, now I can see, did all of a sudden it all went in there in a giant block of text? So did they copy and paste? I can also kind of track to see, are they taking reasonable breaks as if you're thinking and researching, or is it just a constant stream of consciousness that's clear that they have it and they're just typing away? So there's tools that we're figuring out to do, but it's challenging, and I have 167 students. Also, to be able to do all of that is another challenge for sure. Yes.
That's a very hard job. But what about the government? Does the government do anything about this? Or are they trying to come up? It seems like it's coming from a school district, but at the government level, are they able to come up with some safeguards or assistance programs? Anything they could do to facilitate this?
Well, I think Michael made a good point of, where is this going to have to come from? I don't think this is a local government. I mean, it's an issue that's going to impact everyone. I don't think it's an issue that can really be solved at the policy level with local governments. I think the state of California could have some strong impacts, given we're the fourth largest economy, and we have Silicon Valley, we have Hollywood, we are where so many of these companies call home. But yeah, I agree. Ultimately, if we can get legislation at the congressional level, that would be ideal. But also, I think in the world of policy, you have to be realistic about what is obtainable and what is not. And we're not seeing a federal government that's going to effectively be able to respond to this anytime soon. So I would have more faith in Sacramento legislatures being able to take it on. But there are big money interests here in Silicon Valley that are not going to want to see that type of reform. So I think what we can do at the local level is for school boards to be working in policies to treat academic integrity violations of AI seriously. I think local cities, counties need to be responding to make sure, working with the unions to be making sure that AI is not going to be replacing jobs that are going to be better serving the community. But then, of course, how do we balance that as well with making sure, too, that as everything becomes more expensive, how are we being more efficient in the work that we're doing? So it's all a balancing act.
Hey, Michael, now AI comes in now. What should the schools do to gate that admission process? And are they actually trying to work on something like this?
Yeah, I've been on a lot of different panels with other colleagues that are in the admissions world in this age of AI, and they have concerns about the Common App essay, similar ones that we had back in 2012, 13 years ago, because they don't know who wrote it. They don't know who helped them. They don't know if it was AI. And they are looking at something that is flowery and how it's written. You know, it's not an answer to a question, and it can be very easily influenced by other people who help them write it or by AI. And they are very interested in what we're doing with the PIQs, because that is not something that AI can help you with, because you're answering these questions. And the questions were really great, because we give students 8 questions, and you pick which 4 you want to answer. And to us, it doesn't matter which 4 you pick. You pick the best ones for you. And it's all very intentional. I mean, for a student who is big on leadership and has done things in leadership, they can pick the leadership PIQ and tell us about that. But we also know we have some brilliant students in the UC and colleges everywhere, many who are introverts. Leadership might not be their thing. Well, guess what? You have 7 other PIQs to pick from. You know, there's another PIQ about service. There are kids who love doing service to their community and their school and other places. If you enjoy doing that and that's been an important part of what you've done, that's a great PIQ for you. If you're a student who says, you know, I'm really not interested in doing that, that's not my thing, I'm really interested in my academic subject more than anything, well then don't answer that question about service. Do the question on academic subject. You got all these other PIQs, because we know we have fabulous students who have all different kinds of gifts. And this is a way that we get the very best information from all of our applicants, and AI is not going to help you.
So we have a little time to open up a couple questions for our audience.
My question is, so when so many students are applying, are you guys using universities to cut the cost? Are you using AI to process the application? If yes, to what extent?
The UCs are not using AI to evaluate applications. And
Every
yeah.
single application is read by per human.
every application is read by at least 2 humans for the
Is
University of
there a
California.
filtering criteria? They read every entire all question, or they read based on like AP score or GPA?
We read everything in the application. We have 13 different criteria that we're very transparent and put it all out, and we read everything twice by 2 different readers. And if those scores have a difference that has a significance, a statistical significance, then it gets a 3rd read to basically determine it. Yeah.
What's the key point between academic ability and work ability, especially on the CAS?
I think I might answer. I might know your question. It's like, what's the role of the academic experience and work experience, like on a resume when someone's applying those things? And I think it goes back to sort of what I was saying at the beginning, is that the academic experience is part of it's part of what you bring to an employer. Now your resume, and forgive me if you know this already, your resume, it is your marketing tool. You know, it's designed for wherever you are submitting it with some intentionality. You don't put everything on there. You're very selective and strategic on what you decide to put, and even where you decide to place it on your resume. There's a whole bunch of research about that in terms of how you prepare that resume in terms of a marketing piece. So this will depend on where you're applying to and the kind of position you're applying to in terms of where it fits on your resume. But part of this is your academic experience in terms of whatever courses you took and what you gained from that experience. Where it sits on your resume, it's a part of it. How much and where and what you choose to include will depend on who your audience is, because it's a marketing piece and it's part of it. Part of what I'm telling you tonight is how much the job market has changed. And in the past, and many people think it's still the present, but it's not. In the past, where you went to college, just graduated from college, and even where you went was the most important thing on a resume when you were applying for a job. And the data shows that is no longer the case. So it's a part of it, but it's only a part of it. It depends on what you're applying for, and it depends on what are the other experiences that you have that are part of your resume. What the typical trend line is when people are applying is early in your career, you have fewer experiences, so college is higher on your resume. Later in your career, when you have many more experiences, the experiences that you've had are much more significant than college 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier, even further back later. I mean, I see resumes where education, it's at the bottom of the second page because they have so many other significant experiences that are more important for me, who's deciding whether to invite this person in to interview. They are strategic in deciding which pieces of information are going to be most important for me to know about and putting those not only on the resume, but at the top, at least in the United States, the way that we look at a resume, the things that are most important, it goes from top to bottom and it goes left to right. I'm just, you know, and there's a lot more things about a resume as well, but it's a marketing piece. And so where it fits, it's part of the strategy.
And that's definitely been the case within my experience of the public sector as well. In my role in the council, either hiring council-appointed officers, so kind of the executive level of the city, or maybe board and commission members who also help us advise the city council on a variety of different policy issues. I think the last thing I look at is the educational institution. Sometimes it helps when I see UC Irvine on there, because that's where I went, and I went, oh yeah, this is a brilliant applicant. But beyond that, I'm looking for experiences, and especially I think at that higher level, at the executive level, or at these commission levels, what you did for education 10, 20, 30 years ago is not going to impress most hiring managers. It's what have you done recently. And one thing I'm always telling my students, because they're going to be going into the entry level, I don't think there's ever been a more important time to be networking. Because how are you, if we're going from a company having 50 engineers, but because of AI, they're able to reduce that down to 5 or 10, how do you stand out? At the end of the day, it's who do people know? Who's going to get the job? Even if you're less qualified, frequently it's going to be, I know that person, I've worked with them, or somebody else has worked with them and they've said good things. So network. And it explains why we look around sometimes and go, how did that person ever get that job? They were probably a really good networker. So really embracing these soft skills too, kind of back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, is really going to be key, especially in an AI era.
And I want to give a pitch for actually the best kind of networking and the value of networking. The best kind of network is actually based on someone's deliverables, their experience and their qualities. That's the best kind of networking. That's the right kind of networking. And it fits. Like, I've hired lots of people over my very long career, and it's hard actually to find really great people. And the advantage of having a network and having a reputation of being someone who is very good at what they do is that when I'm looking for someone, I ask around to people that I know, people that I trust. Who do you know? Who do you know that would be good at this job? Now, these are relationships that I have with people. And if they give me somebody who's not good, that's going to be a problem. They wouldn't do that. It would probably end our relationship. I couldn't trust them anymore. I've never had that happen. You know, nobody's going to recommend somebody who I trust, recommend someone and say they're good when they're not good. It just doesn't happen, okay? But so I'm trying to figure out, who do you know that's good? Ah, I know someone that's good. This is what this person did. This is how she worked. This is what, you know, yeah, this is who this is. And I've done the same thing. I've had people that I've worked with and somebody has asked me, do you know someone? I'm like, I know someone. She's amazing. Let me tell you about her. And this is like someone who knows firsthand, who can attest with trust, with integrity. That's the right kind of networking. Then it's like, okay, all right, let's get that person in the pool. They still got to go through the pool. But, you know, I mean, a lot of people say this, you know, when things are posted, like they're posted, but often there's already people in the pool that we're kind of already looking for because we've identified them through relationships of people who say this person is really great. let's get her in the pool. And our expectation and hope is that we're going to see them on the other end.
We're going to AI revolution now. So in short response, are you optimistic or pessimistic this time of coming through? What would you say?
I think there are a lot of things that I'm excited about. I think AI has the ability to transform the world as maybe technologies in the past that we've seen, printing press, steam engine, the internet. I think AI is at that level, if not far beyond. I've heard different theories as far as when we're going to, if we ever achieve AI singularity, which is where AI can surpass kind of how intelligent people are. If and when that happens, there's no saying what our limitations can be when it comes to healthcare or anything else. But all that being said, similar to the unintended consequences we saw in the Industrial Revolution or the dot-com bubble burst, we tend to see these periods lead to some great transformations and wealth building, but we also see the consequences of it. And I am concerned, we have already seen the discrepancy in the haves and the have-nots be some of the worst that it's ever been right now. I think AI has a chance of really making that crisis far worse, and so we do need government to also be able to step up and to reasonably regulate this technology, not in a way that's going to suppress our ability to be able to be competitors in the world and to be able to kind of achieve our goals there and our potential, but we need to make sure that we are also preserving well-paid jobs and the quality of life here that we've come to expect.
And I think if we can get back to, it's going to take everyone getting involved in voting, we can fix all these things. If we don't, then we could be into a really dark spot.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Councilman. Tonight, we've heard from two people who've seen education from both the ground level and the system-wide view, from classrooms and city halls to the highest level of college admissions. What's clear is this: we're standing at the edge of a massive transformation in how we define learning, achievement, and opportunity. In an era where AI may soon outperform our kids in many traditional academic tasks, the real question becomes, what makes us human? What should we teach in a rapidly changing world? The answer won't come from one institution or one solution. They'll come from conversations like this, where educators, parents, students, and leaders come together to reimagine the path forward. Thank you again for being part of this conversation.